All phenomena are without self. This is the conclusion that the Buddha often stated after delivering his teachings. He would consistently say, Sabbe Dhamma Anatta, meaning that all phenomena, all conditioned things, are without a true self or inherent existence. The Buddha emphasized that even the Dharma, the teachings given by the Tathagata, lacks a true self. His aim was to guide us to release our attachments, making every effort to help us let go of all things, even the Dharma itself. Let me explain this in more detail. When we speak of all phenomena, we are referring to conditioned states, mental fabrications, not to coarse, physical things like the body or material substances. We are not concerned with form or physical reality, but rather with the mind and its fabrications. These conditioned states have never had a true self or inherent existence, not from any time in the past. They are simply mental constructs, without any real essence or self. The Buddha tried to show us this truth, but due to ignorance, avidya, that resides in our hearts, we mistakenly perceive these fabrications as having a self. Consider our thoughts, the internal dialogues we engage in. When we think and think, it often leads to suffering, so much so that it can cause mental disorders or depression. Yet these thoughts have no true self, no real existence. We perceive them as having a self, but why do we see them this way when they are intangible? It's important to understand this. Thoughts cannot be grasped, right? They are like radio waves, real in a conventional sense, but intangible. We create these conventions, making something that seems real so we can communicate. But the essence of these waves cannot be grasped. They require instruments to convert them into images and sounds. Thoughts are similar, tools created by the mind, but without any inherent graspable reality. The mind creates this tool, thoughts, for the purpose of learning. But this tool, thoughts, is something intangible. We need to understand this. Thoughts cannot be grasped or preserved. Can you tell your thoughts to only be positive? If they had a true self, you could command them, right? But thoughts cannot be ordered around. You can't tell them to only think good or positive things. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they dwell on good things, and sometimes on bad. You have no control over them. Anything that cannot be controlled is without a true self. It is not you, and it is not yours. Because thoughts are intangible and cannot be controlled, we must first understand this. Can we control our thoughts? If someone could, they would be able to command their thoughts to think only positive things all the time, but this is not possible. If you can't control them, it means they lack a true self. This is a simple yet profound truth. The reason beings perceive a self is due to ignorance, avidya, the lack of understanding in the mind. The mind mistakenly clings to the notion of a self. The Buddha strived to show us that these phenomena have never had any true self. He crafted this conventional language and this conceptual world to help us understand. By seeing through the flow of mental fabrications, the Buddha sought to help us release our attachment to these illusions. Since thoughts are without self, and even the sounds we hear are without self, anyone who perceives this truth is ready to realize the Dharma here and now. Imagination operates in a similar way. Whenever we think, it is accompanied by images or mental pictures. However, just like thoughts, these mental images also lack inherent self. If imagination had a true essence, you could command it to produce only beautiful images continuously. Try it yourself. Imagine only beautiful, perfect images all the time. Can you maintain a constant image of the Buddha before you, from waking until sleep and throughout your entire life? Even those who practice meditation find it difficult to sustain a single image persistently. This shows that mental images, like all phenomena, do not have a true, independent self. They arise and dissolve based on conditions and are not permanent or inherently real. If someone could achieve this, it would be called mastery of meditation and visualization. However, even those who attain such states cannot maintain a single image for long. Eventually, the image fades away. Why? Because mental images, like all phenomena, lack true self and arise from conditions. When we accept this teaching from the Buddha, that nothing has inherent self, we realize that if imagination itself has no self, then why should we suffer over it? Understanding this, we can easily attain enlightenment. It is really as simple as that. The mind must accept this, and emotions are similar. Emotions cannot be controlled or grasped. Can you make an emotion stay happy all the time? Try to imagine a state of happiness. Can you consistently visualize what happiness looks like? It's challenging to maintain a constant feeling of happiness, and even if some people might manage it for a short while, it's not something that can be sustained indefinitely. If someone could manage to maintain such an emotion continually, from now until their death, it might lead to rebirth in a favorable realm. However, the Buddha did not teach us to seek rebirth. Instead, he taught us that what we call merit or goodness is essentially a state of happiness. But even this, being a mental state, lacks inherent self. True understanding comes when we realize that these concepts, merit, goodness, and happiness, are transient and do not possess any lasting essence. Is there a true self in the emotion of happiness? Can it be grasped or preserved eternally? No, it cannot. This reveals its lack of inherent self. The Buddha taught that nothing has a true self. Consider the present moment of hearing a sound. Can you make the awareness of sound persist continuously? Can you force it to focus solely on sound and nothing else? It is impossible. Awareness, like all phenomena, lacks inherent self. It functions only when stimulated by an external object. Without such stimuli, it ceases and becomes empty. This reveals that awareness itself has no true self. Reflecting on this, we realize that self does not exist as we imagine it. This understanding is fundamental to grasping the nature of existence. The Buddha taught that the 5 aggregates, khandhas, and mental phenomena, nama, are devoid of inherent self. Grasping this simple yet profound truth is the key to enlightenment. Understanding and observing this with clarity brings us closer to liberation and purity. This is the essence of the teaching.